Tesla is asking its shareholders to reinstate that multi-billion-dollar compensation package for CEO Elon Musk, the one that was rejected by a Delaware judge as unfair earlier this year. The board says it still stands behind the pay package. Of course it does, because they get paid. And that vote in favor at the company's annual meeting would, quote, restore Tesla's shareholder democracy. Again, but they're pulling in all the... I can't believe First Amendment wasn't shoved in this statement. Shareholders will also be voting on Elon's plan to move Tesla's corporate home from Delaware to Texas. So it's moot. The Delaware decision moves. This is what they said they were going to do. They will do it. He'll get his money back. They'll win on this one. Tesla shareholders, very much like Trump, Truth Social, although Tesla's an actual business, still will bid it up no matter what he does. So they want to pay him. Maybe he's worth it if the stock does well, if he can turn it around and get better cars and, get the economic prospects of Tesla doing well. He's certainly capable of it compared to Donald Trump. But the argument seems to be they may not have been aware what was behind the creation of the pay package, but now they are. I think they will approve it. I think most people think they will. Just for people to be aware, Tesla's stock performance has been more than lackluster in 2024. The shares have lost 38% of their value so far. Elon's pay package was worth $56 billion in January. Now it's closer to $45 billion. He is the key man in this thing at this point. It probably shouldn't be. And he wanted voting control back in January. He'll get that probably. It's his company to do with what he wants to. I don't know. It's capitalism. Nice to meet you. Thoughts?
I think that's right. I think I do think his pay package will be reinstated. And the thing that Aswat Damodaran and my colleague at Stern pointed out that made a lot of sense to me is we see the headline number, 56, now 45 billion. Mm-hmm. And the delay, by the way, if he were to exercise and sell all his shares, I don't know if he was planning to do that, it's cost him $10 billion even if it's reinstated. But that's the headline number. But when they actually devised and awarded the compensation package, it was on options on stock when the stock was far below this, meaning that if you valued his actual compensation package when the award was made, it was dramatically less than $45 billion. And as much as I hate to in any way defend or acknowledge the point, he wasn't paid $45 billion. He was given options much less than that, and because the stock skyrocketed, he's registered this enormous windfall. So I'm not sure it's entirely fair to say should the board be paying him $45 billion. If Vox gave us let's say $10 million worth of options, options that had a value of $10 million, and you value options based on their upside potential using like the Black-Scholes method. And then Tesla's stock went up, and then Vox's stock went up 10x. Our shares would probably be worth somewhere between 100 and 200 million. And people might say, well, these podcasters aren't worth that. But that's not the number. You look at the initial compensation or value of the options when they were awarded. So I think it'll be reinstated. And I do think it's a little unfair to look at the headline number because what we're not taking into account is the fact that the stock skyrocketed after they
absolutely. I get it. I think the point the Delaware court was making is a good one. This board is in his pocket, and that's as many corporations are. FYI, they're particularly in his pocket. This board it benefits from him. They party with him. It just shows corporate boards, and this is a particularly. Very compromised one that'll do his bidding.
Agreed.
And that's, to me, that's the message here is I think, the Delaware court is right. And this terribly compromised board has every right to reward him because he's the one, he's the guy. Again, grotesque, certainly worth it. The stock has been up under his leadership, so they've all benefited. In this case, they've all done very well with whatever his antics may be. I do think they're facing a lot of challenges, as we've talked about, and I think we borne out to be right, even though we got slapped by all the stands, which is, let's look at the company itself. The product is tired. The toxic behavior is hurting the brand. There's competition, and it's a tough market. So that's really what people should be looking at with this company more than anything else. And if he does really well, they should pay him a lot. If they don't, I feel like you should be paid based on your thing. But the way they rewarded this is the Delaware court is 100% right. They should go after everybody, every company. Often it's like this. Just happens to be the most egregious example of that, presumably.
But so far, year to date, the Tesla is the worst performing stock in the S&P. I mean, out of 500 stocks, it's the worst performing. And also, they had their biggest miss in terms of estimates for vehicle delivery.
Yeah.
So I think this stock has a long way to go down. They've laid off 10% of the workforce, which is probably
A good idea.
probably the right move. But there's a lot. The hardest thing about being on a board, I find, and more broadly probably about management, is compensation. And in this instance, it's okay. How do we try and justify the compensation here? What I do think this will have an impact on is I don't think he's going to be issued so many shares that he controls the company or a new class of shares. I think that this has basically sent a signal to the board that there is other governance, and you can't just do ridiculous things that are
Because
clearly
you're
off
benefiting.
market.
And they're benefiting. That journal, a second journal piece was so revelatory. What the fix is in for this guy. Again, he's done really well with the stock. I'm gonna, I do not compliment Elon Musk, but the problem with this company is not that he is not paid enough. It has to do with stop focusing on Twitter and focus on doing better cars. It doesn't even matter now because there's too much competition. There's too much consumer sentiment against him. It doesn't matter unless he comes out with the best car ever. And no matter how many jazz hands he puts around robo-taxis or anything else, I would be surprised if he can pull a rabbit out of a hat here. He had his time, and we'll see. It's a good car. It's a good car, but there's lots of good cars now. And that's the way it is. This is so inevitable, what's happened to him, and it's a business story rather than an Elon Musk story.